Iran has bombed militant bases inside Pakistan. Yes, you heard that right. What a week it's been for geopolitics. I'm Barkha Dutt, here with the Mojo story. Iran says that it has struck militant bases in Pakistan. The militant group Jaish-al-Adl, by the way, with an India connection, the group that is reported to have kidnapped Kulbhushan Jadav from Iran and handed him over to Pakistan's ISI. That is the group that has been struck inside Pakistan. Pakistan has called these developments unacceptable. The strikes came even as leaders of both countries were meeting at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Pakistan has recalled its envoy from Iran and also expelled Iran's ambassador to Pakistan. Iran's response has come, interestingly, just hours after Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar was in Tehran. I'm drawing no connections there, but I am commenting on the timing and a very, very interesting week that has unfolded. Remember, before Iran struck inside Pakistan, it also went for the Mossad headquarters in northern Iraq. Pakistan's response has been rather muted. Perhaps Pakistan is stunned. What is and should be the view from India? What might the Pakistan army do next? So far, it has responded using diplomatic measures. Might it consider other quote unquote muscular responses? And what might that mean for the security of India? To talk about all this and more, let's introduce our panel of experts today as we look at this big international story. I never actually thought I would say the words Iran has bombed bases inside Pakistan. Joining us is veteran diplomat, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, DCA Raghavan. Welcome to the program, sir. Also joining us is military veteran General Shukla, former army commander. And joining us from New York today, somebody who doesn't pull his punches in analyzing what's happening in his country, Wajahat Khan, who is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. In this case, I will start with you, Wajahat. Pakistan did not deny that this had happened. The Pakistan Foreign Ministry issued a statement saying this is unacceptable, it's a violation of our territory, and so on. Is there a sense of disbelief in Pakistan? Did you feel disbelief when you first saw, what had happened?
Good morning, Barkha. Thanks for having me. Yes, it is a critical story. It is an important story. It's a story we haven't seen the parallel to in a while. These are Iran's deepest strikes inside Pakistan. Now, mind you, the relationship with the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, if I were to psychoanalyze it, I would call it passive-aggressive. They're not as cozy as the Pakistanis are perhaps with the Saudis or the Emiratis. But however, they do share a 1,000-kilometer border, and that border has some of the most porous outposts in the world. There's a huge smuggling network which has existed there for decades. And then, of course, there is this Baloch insurgency. Both sides have been victim to this Baloch insurgency. But for the last couple of decades, they've sort of figured it out. They haven't gone all out in terms of castigating or criticizing each other. They've figured out some sort of mechanism when it comes to solving their problems. They've both taken hits from the other side, and everybody and this is, by the way, Balochistan is my home state. I grew up there, so there's a lot of cultural affiliation as well. This is not the LOC. This is not the Indian border by any means. There's that outward hostility does not exist. But the very fact that no communication channel was used, the Indian foreign minister had been there recently, and the fact that Pakistan has been bracketed with Iraq and Syria, which are two smaller, lesser proxies, if for lack of a better word. I'm sure the diplomats here will probably use better language than I do. But Pakistan is not Iraq and Syria in Pakistan's mind. And yet, what's disturbing is that the Pakistanis have been bracketed, they think, with Iraq and Syria by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Yes, the calculus for becoming a part of a third theater in this war in the Middle East, the second theater being the Yemen theater, the first theater obviously being the Israel-Palestine theater, is shocking. They've gone into a meeting today. They've come out. They're being very slow with the escalation. The Pakistanis, they've recalled the ambassador to Iran, as you know. But beyond that, there is serious there is a serious lack of strategy here so far. They haven't been quick on their feet, and that is creating shock in power circles there.
All right, let's open this up. Pakistan is being clubbed with Iraq and Syria. Pakistan has been slow on its feet. It's been a somewhat tame, some would say even tepid response. Will it stay that way? It may not stay that way. Let me bring in Ambassador Raghavan. Were you surprised, or does nothing surprise you in the kind of week that we witnessed?
Well, I wasn't entirely surprised because tensions in the border between Iran and Pakistan are not new. You know, they recur frequently, and there is a local dynamic to them, which the two capitals, despite sometimes their best efforts, are not able to resolve. What is new certainly is the scale of the attacks, the fact that there were apparently drones and missiles used. Secondly, they were much deeper inside Pakistani territory than in the past. And most of all, that Iran, came out so frontally announcing it had done this alongside the action it had taken with Syria and Iraq. So that certainly is surprising. But in itself, tensions between Pakistan and Iran on these border issues is not surprising. I think the Pakistani response, as always, is they're in somewhat of a bind. They don't want to escalate. There's also there is a certain pressure which works on them because their sovereignty they feel has been violated. But it's not a major political issue in Pakistan. It's not like India-Pakistan, as Wajahat just said. It's not even like Pakistan-Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The person on the street in Lahore or Karachi or Islamabad doesn't get too much exercised about Pakistan-Iran relations. So I would say that they would probably try to handle it diplomatically. These measures are quite robust, withdrawing ambassadors from fellow Islamic countries when everything was otherwise seemingly going well is not a small step in itself. But they will be certainly in a bind about what else to do. They can't. They may think of some kind of trade sanctions, but those would work more against Pakistan than against Iran. And possibly they will wait for some dialing down by Iran itself before deciding on the next steps.
General Shukla, let's talk a little bit about what it means for the security of this region. The fact is that, what do we know about this group that has been targeted? We know that it's a Sunni Salafist militant group. We know that it's a terror group that Indian intelligence has always believed was responsible for the kidnapping of Indian national Kulbhushan Jadav, who's currently a death row prisoner in Pakistan. We believe, when I say we here, I of course mean we as Indians. The Indian state believes that Jadav was abducted by this group, and handed over to Pakistan's ISI. When you look at what's happening, what does it mean for our security? What does it mean for India?
Yeah, I'll make three observations in this, and then let me see if I can connect it to India. First is, just before your show started, I was listening to the Iranian foreign minister speak to Fareed Zakaria. And he was, giving novel reasons or clever by half differentiations. He was saying that, listen, we have no problem with the three states in question, Iraq, Syria, Pakistan. Our relations are wonderful. We are just striking the inimical entities therein. So the Mossad-affiliated center in Erbil, the ISIS in Idlib. And he gave reasons. He said the ISIS targeted the Soleimani Memorial, 84 people were lost. He gave a whole lot of things which the Mossad has done in Iran. And he didn't make the third point, but the third point is all over the press, where they are saying it is in response to the December 2023 storming of the Rusk police station in Iran. So I think what's happening is that Iran is responding to, it's a novel differentiation. It might not entirely make sense, but that's the first point. The second point is, I have been tweeting for a while saying that what is happening in the world, that from once Bill Clinton said, it's the economy stupid. Today, in my view, I think it's geopolitics and national security stupid. And we have just not been reading the tea leaves in the international system right. Just let me give you an example. 1 week before 7th October, Jake Sullivan in a press conference says, there may be trouble spots elsewhere, but West Asia has been taken care of. And look what happens in West Asia. And thereafter, it is not only these three events. If you've been following, other developments, see how events are rapidly spinning out of control. Iraq militias closely linked to Iran have targeted American bases and camps in Syria more than 130 times in the last 3 months. 130 times. And what happened in Erbil? It is not only the strike on the center, but it was very close to the US consulate. The airport closed. It drove a wedge between Iraq and Afghanistan. These escalations today involve 6 countries: Israel, Iran, Pakistan, USA, Iraq, Syria. So my whole point is that the upheaval in the Middle East has great dangers of spinning out of control. And I would just like to make one more point, and this is, I'm picking on an analogy which I first heard Thomas Friedman talk about. He said, look at this, for a long time, there is this battle of power projection. So every time there was a crisis, we had mighty America positioning its aircraft carriers. In the instant case, I'm told there are 4, 2 in the Persian Gulf and 2 in the Red Sea. And Iran, in the last decade, in response to this power projection, has built these 4 land instruments: Hamas, Hezbollah, Iraq, Shia militias in Iraq, and Houthis. And I'd just like to spend 1 minute to tell you how formidable these instruments are. Look at what the Hamas did. I know I'm not talking of the savagery, but it was a high-grade military invasion which decimated a very powerful IDF. So they are just no longer proxies. Look at the Houthis. We are saying they are rebels. They actually control 70% of territory in Yemen. They are virtually rulers of Yemen. The last time around post Aramco, when the Saudi-led coalition, along with USA and UK, tried to subdue the Houthis militarily, they failed. They were spending $6 billion a month. So these 4 instruments, the instruments in the hands of Iran for power projection, they seem to be working.
And I think sorry, go ahead.
Just 30 seconds, Barkha. And I think the larger issue is what? The global East, which is, China, Russia, Iran, these are challenging the global West in terms of one metric. America is still far wealthier than China, but the ability to turn economic surpluses into currencies of hard power, the global East is doing far better. And if I may also posit, Ambassador Raghavan is the expert, the global South is tilting more towards the global East than the global West. And there is a singular challenge to American hegemony. Today, in America, people are asking, what is the point of having 11 aircraft carriers, $950 billion, 800 bases, when you seem to be losing everywhere? The inglorious exit of Afghanistan,
you have given us a...
It is not a wider point here.
Yeah, I get that. There's a kind of macro picture that you've painted, and I just want to zoom in a little bit back to what's just happened right in our neighborhood. Before I come back to Wajahat, Ambassador Raghavan, as someone who understands Pakistan very well among other countries that you've represented India in, what's happening here? Because, when I think of Wajahat, say that in Pakistan's self-image, Pakistan is not Iraq and Syria. Why have we been clubbed with these nations? Why are we being treated like this? And yet Pakistan's internal politics have been in turmoil now for so long that Pakistan's capacity today to respond in any other way might be in question. From an Indian perspective, because this is coming not home, but coming to our backyard slowly, whatever's happening, the spillover effect of what General Shukla just described.
Well, as I said, the Pakistani inclination will be to try to contain this because, more than anything else in terms of mindset in dealing with Iran, they're not dealing with Afghanistan or even with India. So their instinct will be to contain it. They're also conscious of the fact that the country as a whole is in a totally self-absorbed phase. They have elections a few weeks later. Their economic situation is dire, and they already are in a very bad state of bilateral relations with Afghanistan. Because of the TTP attacks, because of Afghan refugees being expelled, there are new measures whereby trade at Torkham, the principal Afghanistan-Pakistan border crossing, has come to a standstill. In any case, relations with India are at a very low plateau. They are stable, but they are precarious, or they are stable but at a very low level of very low plateau. So the Pakistanis, their inclination will be not to let the situation with Iran escalate. How should we see it? I think we are, as General Shukla said, the fact is that we are facing a very, very bad geopolitical situation all across. If you look at our Northeast, our relations, the situation in Myanmar is also precarious. The government there is under a great deal of pressure. The civil war has acquired a new intensity. You don't know what is going to happen between Myanmar and Bangladesh with the new government in Bangladesh. There is an impact on Manipur and other parts of the Northeast. Your entire line of actual control with China is in a somewhat unsettled phase. And in our Northwest, we have Pakistan, Afghanistan, and now Iran. So your entire continental neighborhood is in a somewhat unsettled kind of situation, which is not good for a country like India.
Absolutely.
Because our basic point is that we need a stable neighborhood so that we can concentrate on our economy and on our internal issues. So this entire continental neighborhood being somewhat destabilized is not a good thing.
Wajahat, do you agree with Ambassador Raghavan that the inclination in Pakistan will be to contain this? At the same time, questions will be asked, when an Osama bin Laden was taken out by the Americans, the outcry, initially the denialism, then the outcry, it's the same principle. It's not the same relationship, but it's the same principle. How can the Pakistan army, which effectively runs the country, explain a kind of lack of a more aggressive response?
Thank you. I dare not disagree with the ambassador on anything. But Barkha, I'm going to try to break this down and bring it back home to you guys as well, to India as well. Firstly, of course, this is the world's fifth largest country with the world's fifth largest army, the only nuclear armed Islamic army in the world. That's the way they branded themselves. Pakistan has spent a lot of time and a lot of money in building these armed forces and funding these armed forces. Today, yes, Pakistan is in internal political turmoil and the armed forces are behind that crackdown, which is the centerpiece of that turmoil. But on the one hand, the army has to look strong at home as well. They can't afford to look weak. Keep in mind that in the last dozen or so years, not one, not two, but three of Pakistan's neighbors have been accused of violating its territorial or airspace. India, of course, has been accused. Afghanistan has been accused. Now Iran has been accused. The only people left are the Chinese, God forbid, if they're accused as well. That's no good.
I mean, some might say China controls the Pakistan's already a vassal state.
Well, I'm not going to delve into Sino-Pak politics, but the Chinese have, by the way, weighed in on the most recent thing. They've just weighed in
and asked both countries to show restraint.
Right, and they've called both of them brothers, right? So the Chinese are playing a nice even hand here, but the Pakistanis are in a pickle. If they don't do anything, they encourage the Afghans, no offense, the Indians, the Iranians, and everybody else to bully them further, which they kind of have been pushing the envelope on Pakistan's sovereignty on all sides. If they do something, they risk a third hot border. The LOC India border is hot for decades. We don't need to delve into that. The AFPAC border has been heating up. It's ground zero right now for Pakistan's increased resurgence of terrorism. And now we're going to have a third border? Really? I mean, can we afford this? But more than that, there's something we've missed here, which really brings us to India. There's a Shia Sunni divide in this region, Barkha. And ISIS-KP, and by the way, there's a Shia Sunni divide in India as well. And ISIS-KP...
In what way? In what way is there a Shia Sunni divide in India?
I'm coming to it. ISIS-KP, Daesh, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, etc. in Pakistan, groups in the region which have been resurgent. There are terror groups in Pakistan like Al-Qaeda, and of course in India like Al-Qaeda IS, which have made their own brands, their bread and butter is trying to exploit the Shia-Sunni divide as well as the Muslims versus everybody else divide. They're going to go to town as well. Many of Pakistan's minorities like the Shias have been targeted by these groups. Expect reprisal attacks beginning from them. Of course, anything which is of sectarian nature can spill over. Increased terrorism in Pakistan can and may spill over on either side of the three borders. There's a sectarian problem in Afghanistan. There's clearly a sectarian problem in Iran. And of course, as far as extremism is concerned, there's always a potential of that expanding into India. Terrorism is a threat for India, just like it is anywhere else. If there is a resurgence of terror groups in Pakistan, especially ultra-Sunni Salafist terror groups, that has to be in India's calculus. But more than anything, India is in an interesting place in this whole war of narratives as well. There's a school of people in Pakistan which blame Iran still for housing Indian naval commander Kulbhushan Jadav, who's still in Pakistani custody. That's the alleged spy who was picked up from Iran by Pakistani intelligence around 7 years ago now. He hasn't been sent back despite of a relative thaw in relations and despite of stability on the line of control, relative stability on the line of control. So Pakistan blames somehow India for all of this as well, and because that's perhaps a knee-jerk reaction. So premised on that, I think that this has spillover potential, as the ambassador said. This has the ability to regionally upset and create this third theater. India patrolling the Western Indian Ocean region as far as its navy is concerned, and then being sort of like backed up by the Pakistan Navy as well. That didn't go down too well at home with the Pakistani audiences.
Okay, let me just come in.
And that will have an effect in this greater Middle East conflict as well for Pakistan. So yeah.
Okay. So you've said a whole bunch of things, and we have about 5 minutes left. Let me bring in the general first, and then the ambassador, General Shukla. Kulbhushan Jadav, I did mention him in the very beginning. From an Indian perspective, this is a death row prisoner whom Pakistan has absolutely falsely accused. He was in Chabahar. He gets picked up by the same group. This is what India believes, the Jaish-al-Adl, whose bases have been targeted today. And of course, this particular group that has been targeted, there are many blots on its name. Wajahat would know all of them too well. 2013, they make headlines when they kill 14 Iranian border guards. Then in 2019, they basically killed 27 personnel in a suicide bombing near the city of Zahedan. But from an Indian perspective, since Kulbhushan Jadav has been mentioned, India-Pakistan has been mentioned, what's happening in the Arabian Sea has been mentioned. Go ahead, General.
Barkha, I somehow don't read too much into this attack in southwest Balochistan. I'll tell you why. You look at it from the Iranian perspective. On Monday, they have hit targets in Erbil and Idlib, Syria, Kurdistan and Syria. And on Tuesday, they've done Pakistan. So Pakistan is really not the point. What we should really, what I would like to note is that look at this. Iran, a country under sanctions, how it has resurged militarily and is now trying to assert its regional position in West Asia. That is the larger point. And they are telling the Americans that we will not only take you on with our instruments, but if necessary, we will do what we have to. And here, what we should just see how all these people have, built up this drone missile complex to challenge American power. That is the larger point. Also, please keep a note on, say, countries like Turkey. They use drones to become a superpower, and now they are rewriting the politics of Eurasia. That is the larger point I would emphasize. Look at North Korea. Now we think nothing of North Korea. Russia's resurgence in Ukraine, or its coming back into reckoning, is largely because of the supply of artillery ammunition from North Korea. North Korea supplied more artillery ammunition to Russia than the entire West could to Ukraine. And somebody made this point. Roosevelt many years ago said, if you have to protect democracies, you must have a very strong arsenal. He was referring to the military-industrial complex. Of late, the arsenal of non-democracies is proving to be more powerful than the arsenal of democracies. So it is this conversion of economic surpluses into hard power, I'll keep re-emphasizing. That is the important differentiator. And I'd like to point out to one, irony here in Red Sea, or in this whole business of keeping the sea routes going through the Red Sea and Persian Gulf. See, China is the largest exporter and therefore key beneficiary of the Red Sea route. So is Europe for its energy supplies. But who's policing the Red Sea and who's paying the military costs? USA and UK. So China is the free rider. I just find it absolutely ingenuous. So this military burden sharing and economic benefits also need some kind of course correction here. So these are the larger issues. And if I may just make one point in the Indian context, which we should worry, I'll just take 30 seconds. It seems to me that the arc of conflict is bending towards the Indo-Pacific and closer home. And I wouldn't like to exaggerate. Walter Reed says that this is the war generation. War generation, I'm emphasizing. So the point is that, come 2026, 2027, if we get to conflict, we should not regret then that we wasted valuable time in preparing for it. I'm not saying a conflict is coming, but watching events all around the world, it does seem to me that we must invest more in our military instruments and these very sophisticated capacities, because that seems to be the trend of the times.
I'm going to give the last word to Ambassador Raghavan. And I think what I'm picking up is, one, Wajahat speaks of the spillover impact on India, but the general says the real story of what's happened this past week is in Pakistan or Iraq or Syria or even the Houthis. It is actually a challenge to Western hegemony, where the lines between non-state actors and state actors have been completely blurred, because you're looking at groups that have backing of states that are able to basically create havoc, taking an Israel-Palestine, Israel-Gaza conflict and now expanding its footprint so far wide that it is right in our backyard. Last
Barkha,
word to you.
Houthis
Sorry, General Shukla, you're saying what? Sorry?
I'm saying the Houthis today are hardly non-states. They are
I understand, which is why when we say Houthi rebels, we have to watch what we say, because that's exactly what I'm saying, though, that earlier classification of what's a non-state actor today is under challenge. I do have to close. Ambassador, last word to you.
Well, I will say that, yes, we have to be mindful about what's happening in our region. And certainly the wider destabilization is a factor we always have to keep in account. But I don't think we should exaggerate the tactical basis for these Iran-Pakistan differences and the instinct of both countries after these differences surface to contain
dial it down.
You see, there is a Western narrative and a West Asian narrative about Iranian behavior, but we tend to overlook that Iran, when it is looking west, when Iran looks west, it may be a deeply revisionist power, but when it looks east, towards Pakistan, towards India, it is by and large, it has behaved as a status quoist power. So I don't think we should, jump to the conclusion that whatever is happening is going to spill over to us and we have to go into the trenches. I think, yes, we have to monitor developments. But as I said, there is a tactical basis to Iran-Pakistan differences, which has been there for at least 30 years now. And we shouldn't overlook that.
I think that's a very important distinction, how Iran is viewed by the West and how it's viewed by this part of the world. Wajahat, I was going to close. You have a 30-seconder. Go ahead. Yeah, Wajahat?
I just wanted to update everyone that there is, I agree that this seems more tactical right now as well. The Iranians are beginning to walk it back as well. They've just issued a statement saying we hit the bad guys, not anyone from our brotherly country, Pakistan. So no nationals from Pakistan were hit. That's awfully nice of them, one must say. The Iranians usually don't walk anything back. That in itself is a bit of a sign. But I must say that from an Indian perspective, there are people in South Bloc probably figuring out how the Pakistanis might be reaching out to their no longer best friends in Washington and saying, hey, listen, can we work on this together? There's a lot of Pakistanis are hitting the phones for Riyadh.
That's an interesting thought.
So at this point, I would say that this is an interesting opportunity for the Pakistanis to reestablish contact with Riyadh, with Abu Dhabi, with Dubai, with the Americans, and that, of course, should keep the Indians busy, I would say.
I just want a quick response to that, Ambassador Raghavan. It's a very interesting thought, right? For the American perspective on Iran, Pakistan could offer itself, much as it did when it came to the Afghanistan question.
I think it's possible. My own sense is that American distrust of Pakistan is very deep. And they have such a jaundiced view of their interface with Pakistan that there won't be too many buyers for this logic, although it may well be attempted. I don't rule it out.
Okay, Wajahat, I know you disagree, but can we? I know you're trying to say something, but I'm going to just have to say thank you and goodbye at this point because this can carry on. Thank you, gentlemen. Wajahat, to General Shukla, and to Ambassador Raghavan, a pleasure. And see you all soon. We do certainly live in interesting times. Not that I should be quoting the Chinese, but we really do live in interesting times. Thank you very much and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.